a giant difference between Jennifer Lopez and a fat person. Like to say that, like things are like that's always kind of been style. Like big hips and large breasts, it's genetic. There's a genetic inclination. Like men are attracted to that because women with wide hips, they give birth easier.
I'm not attracted to that.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, people are attracted to different things for sure, but it's like there's a genetic reason for it.
I mean, I agree that Jennifer Lopez is a beautiful woman. Amazing how she's continued her looks into her
Yeah, she's
50s.
like 51. She's still hot as the sun. It's crazy.
But there is no world in which I am attracted to an ass that big.
Wow.
That's just not my style.
I'm on the other team. I like it.
Oh, really?
All right, here we are today on the Joe Rogan podcast. And this is a bit different from the sort of thing I've been doing recently, the sort of commentary I've been doing recently. They're talking about, as you can probably imagine, obesity in America. And they were talking here about Jennifer Lopez, this big ass trend, pardon my French. But of course, there's more to it than that. And I'll let it play for a bit. It's an interesting clip. I've already watched it. And if you're interested, I've got a bit of personal experience with this myself, and I'll go into some detail at the end of the clip. Let's carry on watching.
Really?
I like it.
Yeah, well, you fit in more with good for you, Joe. You fit in with the kids today and your big ass loving friends.
Yeah.
But fat is fat,
Fat is fat.
and it's just not healthy. Even if you find it beautiful or sexy or whatever you want, it's just science. It's bad for literally every part of your health, from how you poop to your eyesight. There's nothing that obesity doesn't affect negatively.
You know who doesn't get any of that body positivity shit, though, is men. Nobody gives a fuck about men. If men are fat, you're just fat. That's like when James Corden tried that shit with you.
Yes.
It was such an obvious ploy. Oh, you're hurting my feelings,
Yes.
Bill.
Oh, yes.
Fat shaming. First of all, that guy's fat from food. He's not like, oh my
No.
God, he's got a genetic disorder. He's just, that's how guy's obviously not working out and living a good life, eating some nice food,
And
a little plump.
yeah. And
Fixable.
Interesting, and interesting. A year or so after he made his big crusade against me, he signed a big contract, I think, with Weight Watchers.
Ah!
He turned right around. But even Weight Watchers is out of style because now we've given up on the idea that obesity is something that can be contained by exercise and diet. It's now a disease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when did obesity become a disease? I'm sorry, I simply don't agree with that at all. Much like saying alcoholism's a disease. It's more like obesity and alcoholism they're more like symptoms, I can understand that they're the result of something. With obesity, yeah, obviously it's a result of eating too much. Now, what is driving you to eat so much? That's obviously worth looking into. And I mean, I'm talking here apart from like people with rare genetic disorders, which just make them gain weight no matter what. Yes, there is a small subset of people who suffer from that, but that is something else. That is an actual disorder. But for the most part, yeah, it's simply, if you're fat, you eat too much and you don't move too much. But I think we all know that. And you simply have to take a look at pictures from 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago in Europe and in America, and you'll see the difference.
I mean, these new drugs they have.
Ozempic. And things like
Ozempic.
that. Yeah.
I was reading about Ozempic. I didn't know this until recently. They have zero clue why it works. They know that it works, just not why. This would bother me a little,
It should.
that if they're giving me something and they're like, hey, this new miracle pill, just take it. We're working on the reason why it might do this to you, but until then, just fuck it.
There's no biological free lunch either. I have friends that are on that stuff, and one friend who just got off of it because he was having some serious gastrointestinal issues that are apparently one of the side effects. There's no free lunch. If you're taking an injection that makes you less hungry, something's going on. That's probably not good.
Yes.
And you're also losing a lot of connective tissue, bone mass, and muscle mass. My good friend Peter Attia did a study on his patients. He's a doctor, did a study on patients that took Ozempic, and one of the things that they found is they lost weight, but they gained fat. They were actually had a higher percentage of body fat because they were primarily losing muscle tissue and connective tissue. They were losing so much of that even though they lost like 20 pounds, they actually went from like 15% body fat to maybe 20% body fat or whatever the number was.
But what I find the most alarming is the way, in just a matter of a few years, the group think that this is a disease now that cannot be controlled by what for 50, 100, a million years before this, it was the scientific consensus that, of course, you can control it with diet and exercise. Just in a couple of years, that went out the window. And you cannot find an article on the front page or in the op-ed page of the New York Times in the last couple of years that has any other belief than this one, that it is a disease, it is not within a person's control. So they're all in on Ozempic or whatever else because we certainly can't leave this to people themselves to control it. That's a giant sea change, and the way they sheep-like just go right in a row.
Yeah.
No dissent.
Yeah, sounds familiar, doesn't it? Of course it's not a disease, and of course people can control it now. They might have trouble controlling it, but this idea of controlling everything wrong in your life with drugs is, I think, a very serious issue. And it goes far, far beyond obesity, and it's just widespread. This whole belief or this whole cultural acceptance that if something's not right, have a drug for it, take this pill for it, take this injection for it. And it goes across all sorts of things. You know, why are there so many more autistic children? Why are there so many more kids with ADHD? Why are there so many more fat people? Why are there so many more depressed people? Why are there so many more name your condition? And well, that's a very long and deep rabbit hole you can go down. But clearly something is going on, which means you and I and all of us need to be aware of this. We need to be aware of what's around us, of the messages we're receiving. And also, if we have children, we need to be very aware of how we bring them up and making sure they stay healthy.
Not one person standing up in the paper of record to say, wait a second, this can't really be the case. I mean, 50 years ago, we looked like a completely different people.
Yeah.
Why is it the case? In 50 years, did we evolve in 50 years, human beings? Was cake not delicious in 1969? I think it was, and yet somehow people resisted it.
Well, there's a lot of diet changes for sure, and I think one of the things about the narrative, there was a lot of influence by vested interests. Like, you know, I'm sure you know about the 1950s, I believe it was, where the sugar industry paid off scientists.
Of course.
To
Yes.
to put the blame on saturated fat, and it changed people's eating.
And corn.
Corn
They changed what the sugar came from because they had too much corn because they subsidized it.
Yeah.
So let's make sugar out of corn, which is not really what you should be making.
Right.
I mean, cane sugar is not great for you either, but it's better than corn. You see the obesity rates go up as corn syrup, but it's still within someone's power to turn it down. You're not helpless.
There's plenty of people out there that have done it too that you can get examples from. I mean, especially in this day and age with YouTube and these social media influencers that have lost a ton of weight, some of those people have gone on diets and lost 150 pounds, and they'll tell you how they did it. And you can get inspiration from them.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah, it's doable, but it's not easy. And the idea of calling it a disease, it's interesting because we kind of agree alcoholism is a disease, but it is similar because you are addicted to food. Like people are absolutely addicted to food, especially high fructose corn syrup products and things where there's like you're getting that big sugar
Well-
rush and the insulin spikes and
Well, they do this in the lab, you know. I mean, they have all these food companies.
things.
All these food companies have labs where they go in and they test how much fat and sugar and salt we can put in this thing to make it as addictive as possible.
So Joe Rogan and Bill Maher are really making some good points here, and they seem perfectly reasonable. Yeah, what can you say? There is an obesity epidemic in the United States. It's coming to Europe. It seems especially prevalent in the Anglosphere, in the English-speaking countries, but it's also in Europe too. There are noticeably more obese people in certain countries than there were in previous generations. Now, for anyone who's still around, and I forgive you, I'll give you a little bit of my personal experience with this, because I was a skinny kid. I have a naturally very slim build. I'm, medium to slim build, medium to slight build, I would say. And I was very skinny as a kid. And then when I started earning a bit of money, I had a paper route when I was 11 or 12, something like that. And the money I earned from that, I spent almost exclusively on candy and junk food and all that kind of thing. And I rapidly put on weight and got myself a belly when I was in the 8th grade. So much so that my sister even commented on it. She said, "Carl, you're getting fat." Ooh, I just revealed my first name there. And so that was like a bit of fat shaming there, which is good. I mean, again, fat shaming, I don't think, and Bill Maher agrees, that you should be mean to people, but you shouldn't avoid reality. If people are doing something that's negatively impacting their health and their social life, you should mention it. Try to be nice about it. You shouldn't bully them about it, but you should mention it. And Bill Maher would agree with that. He's said as much. So I got fat. So that was right about the start of puberty for me too. So I put on a bunch of fat at that time. And ever since that time, before that, I was skinny kid. And ever since that time, I've sort of been up and down throughout my life. I was, fairly normal build for the rest of high school. I did get rid of that fat belly I had in 8th grade because I did some sport in high school. And then in college and then into working life, I would go through periods. And basically, it just came down to gluttony. I would eat and drink too much. I like food. I'm a bit of a foodie. I come from a foodie family. And I like drinking. And if you do it too much and you don't do enough exercise, your body gets out of balance. And, different people's bodies react different ways. Different people of different backgrounds, of different ethnic backgrounds, have different builds. Not everyone is going to have a slight and willowy build, for example, or not all ethnic groups. Some ethnic groups tend to be shorter and squatter than others, but that's not what Bill's talking about here, or Joe. The idea is you should be healthy within the natural build you have, not packing on loads and loads of extra blubber. So, as I said, throughout my life, I had ups and downs with this, and sometimes I would get into sport. I would start running and go, I'd be running for a year every morning, keep things under control that way, watch what I was eating, but inevitably I would slide back. And I still have that problem today. Now, last year, for example, in 2023, I did take a radical approach, and I lost 66 pounds in 75 days. And how I did it was very simple. A total fast. 0 calories. Just water. 0 calories. No food at all. I just drank water with some electrolytes in it, because if you're not eating any food, you will need electrolytes. Water with electrolytes, black coffee, black tea, diet soft drinks, which I know aren't brilliant for you, but it was just to have a change from all the water and the coffee. And it seems unbelievable, but I toughed it out for 75 days. It's not actually that tough. Physically, it's not that tough. Now, this isn't a dieting channel or a fasting channel, but all I can tell you is that it worked. The physical part is not difficult. The mental part is difficult, though, for various reasons. It's a psychological game. Your mind will mess with you, but it is possible. And I kept that weight off until the end of last year. I lost 66 pounds in those 75 days. And that was from May, sort of early May to mid-July. I did that. Kept the weight off for the end of the year. My eating habits were much, much better afterwards. But this year I've been sliding again. And I weighed myself this morning, in fact. And I've put on 16 kilos, which is roughly 35, 36 pounds, something like that. So since the beginning of this year, since I've let myself go, I've slipped into those bad habits again. I've gained back about half of that weight, which is terrible because, I mean, I can see it. I knew it was happening, obviously. But there's obviously an underlying issue. But the putting on of weight is very simple. Just eat less and exercise more. It is really that simple for the vast majority of people. Now, why you suffer from or why you have this compulsion to overeat and to do nothing and these other things, or to overdrink or whatever your addiction is, that needs to be addressed. And clearly I haven't addressed, my underlying issues enough. But I'm just saying this, for my personal experience, to let you know that there is a way out. Because I, for one, would never take drugs like Ozempic or whatever, Wegovy or whatever it is, to control anything. I wouldn't take steroids to get big, to get huge muscles. I wouldn't take one of these weight loss drugs to lose weight. I think that's a very, very bad idea. So that's my personal experience. If you're interested, if you want to hear more, let me know in the comments. Again, this is not my personal blog here, or a weight loss channel, but I can tell you that that's one solution which does work if you can get past the psychological hump. Anyway, guys, I'll leave you with that for now. Like and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel and keep making content for you.